Good then, Morgan. I feel like the builds I'm putting together are getting more and more complex, and if you are not completely clear on the details I'm working with, you won't be able to use the build effectively. Probably this is one of my best builds, and I'm going to explain it. We need to start by going back to a very basic concept. What is a bolt? The whole electricity system in the game is hardcorely confusing, but what I'm talking about is something I tested multiple times. If despite this any error has slipped into the calculations, please let me know in the comments. When you shoot an enemy that's in the lightning state, a portion of the lightning damage jumps from them to another enemy, and then that damage is halved again as it jumps to a third one. With the lightning bolt spell, this is 60% of the base damage for the first jump and 30% for the second. If the lightning status is applied in a different way, the multiplier changes. They probably did this to balance things, but it's still really fucked up. Let's move on. So that's a bolt. We know this because the extra bolt arcana effect doubles it, meaning the 60% damage will jump to 2 enemies and the 30% damage will jump to 2 other enemies. This isn't always perfectly visible because if enemies die in the middle of the damage process and the electricity has nowhere to jump, that damage instance is lost. But with larger groups you can observe it nicely. This will be one of the things we are going to use. The main weapon will be the Striga, because to have large lightning damage jumps, you need a high base damage. This weapon deals double damage to stunned enemies who are already taking double damage from the stun effect. So we're starting with a 4 times multiplier. They become stunned because the initial bolt from the lightning bolt spell stuns full health and minor enemies. It's important to note that this bolt is not that bolt. It doesn't gain any benefits from the arcanas. This will be our combo starter. It's followed by a Striga headshot, then a cursed bell. We will use this to stun again and find an enemy who has the status effect on them, and we hit the head again. If you are fast, you have time for 2 shots, then you ring the curse bell again and so on. By this point, the enemies who were close to each other are already gone. You just need to finish off those who wander a bit further away. Or, depends on the side of the camp, we can get ready for the new wave, which will again have full health minor enemies, so our combo starter can come out again. But this is still far from the full potential, because there is an arcana here called Thunderbolt, which says it gives 20% plus damage to the bolt. For a long time I tried to figure out where this 20% applies, but eventually I gave up. What happens when you use it is that the 60% and the 30% that used to jump now becomes 150. And at this point we are talking about numbers where the 4 times stun headshot with the Striga is 448 if the enemy has no armor, which is quite common. This jumps over as 448 lightning damage, and from there another 224. With the extra bolt arcana, this of course happens twice, but we are still nowhere near the end. There's another arcana here, Perun, which generates an extra bolt on a headshot, but that's just the basic one. We also have a Perun under the deadliest prophecy, which only requires you to store 5 feathers in your inventory, and from that point on, you get yet another extra bolt, which means the base damage now jumps 4 times at 100% and another 4 times at 50%. Even higher numbers are achievable. After you throw the cursed bell, as you know, everyone gets stunned, and if our jumping lightning damage jumps to a stunned enemy, it will double. We can also apply the fire status mainly with the Blood of Banshee relic. This is again a huge step because a bolt that jumps to a burning enemy will generate red lightning, which means insane numbers. I couldn't quite calculate this part of the equation. Let's see again. So you are stunning with the lightning spell on a full HP minor enemy, with the cursed bell, throwing its stuns, and the bell can be gonged 2 more times. The last gong also stuns major enemies. The range is extremely large. Or you can shoot the soul sigil. You can electrify with the lightning spell on 5 enemies, with the dynamo ring on the last enemy you shot, with the Striga if you land a critical hit, Or finishing with a dynamo ring is also an electric explosion. But you should always aim to apply the status effect with the lightning spell, as it gives the best multiplier. The good thing is that these effects can be overwritten. So if you accidentally applied the dynamo ring's lightning status effect, you can overwrite it with a light spell. Let's go through the equipment one by one. Striga. Already mentioned many times, this is our main damage. We use it for headshots on stunned enemies under the lightning status. Echo. Perfect for triggering the soul sigil, effective against major enemies that are left alone. It's important that we don't focus on major enemies with this build. We try to kill them with jumping damage instead because their armor doesn't protect against it. The Echo is more effective against the boss as well. Vulture. I always use it as my demonic weapon. It's a panic weapon if we get into a tougher situation in the middle of a bigger fight. Banshee. We use it to spread the fire status. It can already come into play during the starter combo. If enemies get the fire status faster than the lightning can jump, then red lightning will jump from the start with increased damage. Jew. Fits the build very well. We will be close to the enemies so that the light spell and headshots can be well coordinated. After kills, yellow orbs remain, giving you speed boost, shield and cleansing ailments. To reinforce this, we use the Bulwark Incense, which gives a chance not to lose your shield if you get hit. The shield is temporary anyway, so just be careful. Dynamo Ring. You don't really need to focus on it, it plays a very secondary role here. Beads. Don't panic. I will show you how I use them, and then how you can simplify it. Free Arcana Bead. This is a must-have for me. If I don't spend my resources on revealing hidden arcanas, I can spend and stockpile more. Sprint Bead. This is also essential. Using this makes managing stamina much easier. Light Spell Charge Bead, so you don't have to worry about whether your light spell has recharged or not. Elemental Duration Bead, so the status effect stays on them a little longer. And Ailment Power Bead. I didn't want to mess up with this before, but the jumping damage can be increased further. Using this, a bolt's damage will be 75% and 37.5% of the base. With Thunderbolt, these numbers became 125% and 62.5%. To be able to equip these, you need 40 on Blood, 40 on Mind and 35 on Witchery, meaning a level 89 at worst. You can give up some beads if you are at a lower level. If you remove the Sprint and the Free Arcana beads, you need 51 less, and we can say it's usable at level 38. I won't give up the other 3 beads for anything. If you need to cut corners because you are still at low level, it's advisable to swap the Incense for Wellspring and the Fetish for Handbane. This is a flexible part of the build depending on your level and how experienced you are. Prophecies. We are speculating to get Perun from the deadliest prophecy in the 4th row. Everything in the first 3 rows can increase the chance of this. Nimble Finger. We would really like fast reload or kill reload, but reload swap is also acceptable. We are happy if critical chain appears because it narrows the deadliest prophecy's loot pool. Air. Thunderbolt. We are very happy with this. It will significantly increase all our bolt damage. Longer bolt and extra bolt are also very good deals. We are only happy to see Perun if we already have one of the previously mentioned ones alongside it. Only choose Conductor if you have a lot of extra feathers. Besides, the status effect will spread well enough anyway. The same applies to Shockwave, and we are happy to see it because it's removed from the loot pool. More bolt jumps means an additional jump. This halves the second damage instance once more. If you have Thunderbolt, this also represents a pretty nice number. Fire! We are hunting for Chaos Flame, Accelerant and Pyrolysis to increase our base damage. We are happy to see Critical Burn and Flashover because they are removed from the dice loot pool. Otherwise, we can manage without them for now. We will be landing headshots anyway, and the Banshee is already there as a sort of mini Flashover. If you have a lot of feathers, then of course you should add them to the build. Deadice. We have maxed out our chances. If we got Critical Chain in the Nimble Finger, Shockwave in air, and critical burn and flashover and fire, then only Deadeye, Cascade and Perun remain here. This is what we've been speculating on the whole time. Of course, the chance of this is pretty low, but even if only a few of the previously mentioned ones showed up, we still have a fairly good chance to getting Perun. Lightness! This is for the light spell recharge. The level 35 witchery should be enough, but a little extra doesn't hurt. You can also choose an extra light spell or full of magic, although the latter is unstable. Bull! We are hunting for health sacrifice and range sacrifice here for the sake of increasing our base damage. Revenge could also be considered, but in truth you shouldn't really be taking any damage. Firearms! Elemental firepower, cleansing fire, full of magic, stun bullets. You can choose from many things here, but you will only be able to take one. The other two will be locked. You could actually swap this with lightness, because the bonus from the omen doesn't really work fully anyway. In that case, maybe it's better to choose more. This is all I have. I hope I didn't overcomplicate it and the explanation was clear. I put my previous builds together in a similar way, so if you can't reproduce the gameplay, feel free to ask questions. If you'd like to see more build explanations in the future, then smash the like button hard. I've also brought 2 example runs to show how I use this build. Enjoy watching.